Meredith, for such a lovely and generous invitation and a welcoming. And I'm really grateful for everyone that makes this happen, and especially, considering it's a big transition that everyone's made. And to be open to change like this is not something to be taken for granted. And we do need people to help us with this, and Meredith and Kynan and Alex up the back, and everyone in a way is contributing to this event and all subsequent events. So we're very lucky to be here. I'm completely experienced to be able to take this role and to be the role of the teacher, because I have 73 years of being myself. And that's it. And so I would suggest that may be enough. I mean, it's not exactly true what I say, because the first 40 years I thought I knew who I was. But after that, it's sort of, I had varying degrees of revelation of who I really was. And that was very humbling. And the humbler you are, the closer you are, I think, to your true Buddha nature. It's been my experience, and I'd be interested in your experience. This is not just me having a blast from the pulpit sort of thing, but really engaging you. So I love Thich Nhat Hanh when he does a Dharma talk. He says to his people, I am here, I know I am here. And he asks the question, is the Sangha, or has the Sangha assembled? And when he asks that question, it's a time for everyone to check in. Am I here? You see, because the Sangha is not a group of individuals. The Sangha is an organic unit. So when I ask the question, has the Sangha assembled? That's a question to everyone here and the group identity of the Sangha, which is a wonderful thing. The more I learn about this, the more in awe I am of that, what a Sangha really means. It's a family. To be a family, we have to take the risk of being here. So now I'm going to do my Nick Kyrgios impersonation. And you know how he, when he does one of his trick little shots, and the audience will clap, and he goes, yeah, more. So I'm going to ask the question again. This time I want you not necessarily to be louder, but to be deeper in asking that question of yourself. Am I really here? Have I put aside what has been done and what needs to be done, so I can really be here? Because when the Sangha is constellated, it constellates the teaching, if it's a live teaching and not just something that's rehearsed. The Sangha is the actual teacher. The Dharma is an invitation from the Sangha, and it evokes the teacher. So I'll ask the question again now. They're all here, I imagine. Looks like it. So, has the Sangha assembled? And you say, yes, the Sangha has assembled. Okay, so here we go. Has the Sangha assembled?
Yes, the Sangha has assembled.
Now, when I hear that, it's like a bell. It's you're all saying it at the same time. How does that? That's a miracle in itself. How did you do that? Why didn't you sort of one start and then one? So already you are really here. And just as the bell, if I invite the bell, when I do that, I have to be ready within myself and have the intention of sending this out to everyone, including Bhante down in the South Coast. So let's listen to the bell and follow the bell. Temple bell ceases, but it continues in the flowers. And we are all flowers of the same bush. So we can ask, where does the bell arise? And where does it go to? It arises from emptiness, It fills itself, and it fills the room, and it fills our heart. And then it goes back into emptiness. So that the emptiness is form, and the form is emptiness. And in Thai's teaching, the invitation of the bell is something that takes quite a long time to really master, because he really wants you to be there, to be really present, and to have the intention of really sending out the metta, not just to the group, but to the boundless. So it's really permeating and inviting a response. Now, when I say that I've had 73 years of being myself, that means that I can't be Bhante, and which is a disappointment to some, and maybe not such a disappointment to others. But I really want to bring Bhante into our awareness right now, because he's having a tough time, and has had up and down for quite some time. So he really would benefit from our metta, our love, our compassion. And so I'd like us to just remember him as though he's actually here. I'm not sure if he's tuning in or not, but we can imagine that he is.
We have about 14, 15 people.
And so with our intention, with our open heart, we bring Bhante, we'll close our eyes and bring Bhante, his lovely, kind face, into our awareness. And see that at the deepest level, our Buddha nature is Bhante's Buddha nature. So it's I as the Buddha seeing the Buddha. There's no personal self. There's just an impersonal sense of being and perceiving oneness. One heart, one nature. We allow the gratitude for Bhante's teaching to well up in ourselves. To send our really best wonderful intentions for his speedy recovery. And if there's anybody who knows how to be with dukkha without identifying with it, without really becoming the suffering, but just letting it arise in his awareness, it's Bhante. So be well, Bhante, and come back soon. And then, when we open to what we're actually doing here, it may seem as though you're all coming together to hear a teaching, but in fact, what I'm offering is nothing new. You already know probably more than me about Buddhism. But what I do have to offer is a depth of understanding, which is not of the intellect. It's not something that I've gathered from notes or from lectures. It's something that I've experienced within myself. And so a real Dharma talk is like rain, which just falls down and waters the seeds of our own innate nature. And those seeds will flower in the presence of one who does touch that place and knows how to touch that place in others. And when there's a sincere intention that comes from there, then the teaching and the taught, if you like, is one thing. It's not me up here and you down there, or you up there and me down here. It's us together. And so that's why I've got these little notes around, because at a later point I'm going to be asking you to reflect on a question, but not an academic type question, but the one question that arises spontaneously as you listen deeply to yourself. And it would be the one question, if you had one question to ask the Buddha, what would that question be? So it's not so much the clever answer that's important, but it's the question, your question. So it's not just the usual question, it's the question. And we've all got the question, one question. And that's the live question that wants to be answered, and in being asked, it awakens the whole group. So that's the sort of attitude in which I want you to think about. You don't have to do it now, but there will come a time when I'll ask you to you can either say it spontaneously. Not everyone might want to be on record as asking their one question, but if you like to remain anonymous, that's what the little note paper is for. So you can just drop it in the little bowl there. Now, just as the Dharma teaching, if you like, is like the rain that arouses the seeds, the chanting with which we begin the meetings, and Bhante has a beautiful voice and he knows how to do that. I don't have such a beautiful voice, and B, I can't remember the words. So I'm going to revert to a very simple chant, which is the one that Thai taught us, which again is just like the rain, which is touching something quite innocent and lovely. And at a later point, I'm going to pass a lovely picture which came to me from somebody in California this morning, which is the wonderful thing about the internet. You know, it's just a window to eternity, to infinite possibility. And this image is of a little baby just being born, and it's wrapped up in swaddling cloth type of thing, and just sitting there looking totally innocent. And that little baby, that little child in us is still there. And that innocence is something that we can touch into when we're really present with ourselves. And we don't label anything. We don't say this particular sensation is something or other. We just as a baby wouldn't know, its own name or its mother's name, but it just experiences sensations as a gestalt, as a totality. And that's how I want this innocence to be experienced. And so when we chant and when we sing, we're singing lullaby to the baby that we are. And there's something immensely beautiful about that when we do it. So the little chant that I like is happiness is here and now. Who knows that one? Yeah, a couple of us do. So I'll do my best singing it just to get you started, and then you can follow it. So it goes like that, like this. Happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries, nowhere to go, nothing to do, and I'm not in a hurry. Happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries, nowhere to go, nothing to do. I'm not in a hurry. So whenever you're feeling nervous or, something, you're anticipating something with a degree of concern, to be able to just sing those little lines from the heart to the little baby that you are inside is immensely soothing. And am I speaking to the Zoom audience as well? So, so we'll sing it one more time for these people. Happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries, nowhere to go, nothing to do. I am not in a hurry. So that always makes me giggle when I do it in the bath. So I hope it is something of that order. So, and the other chant that I like is the one called When I Rise, and it's a lovely chant, and I hope I can remember the words. Might have to cheat a little bit here. So forgive me for looking it up. So this one goes like this. And when I rise, let me rise like a bird joyfully. And when I rise, let me rise like a bird joyfully. And when I fall, let me fall like a leaf gracefully, without regret. From the top again. And when I rise, let me rise like a bird joyfully. And when I fall, let me fall like a leaf gracefully, without regret. And that brings in the idea of rising and falling, the opposites. And in the world of duality, which we live in the manifest world, whenever we assert something, we are also asserting its opposite. So if I'm going to rise, you can be sure I'm going to fall. If I'm born, I'm going to die. And importantly, the Buddha taught, basically he kept saying, I'm only teaching one thing only, and it's this. There is suffering. So he asserted suffering. And in asserting suffering, he also asserted the way out of suffering towards well-being. So if suffering exists, well-being turns up at the same time. If dark is present, light is also present. And all you have to do is turn on the lights and the dark is dispelled. So the Buddha's teaching is really the path from suffering to the end of suffering. And we have to know when we're suffering, we have to know the path to suffering. We have to explore it. And when we are suffering, we have very little choice but to look deeply, if we really want to relieve suffering and to be happy, to look deeply at what's brought us to this suffering. If we're depressed, we find ourselves automatically looking what's happened in the last 6 months or year to bring this about. And in doing that, we're starting to find some understanding and starting to build a path to the relief of suffering, to find our way out of the depression. But the key is to rest in our deep self as Buddha nature and pure awareness, and so that we can allow whatever arises, if it's suffering or even if it's well-being, to be something that arises, and then at other times it will fall away. But our true nature is beyond these opposites. This is our ultimate self, our impersonal self. Has no preference. So whenever we're hearing people saying things like, oh, it's raining, it's a terrible day, isn't it? Of course we can go along with that, with the chit-chat, but in our hearts we know that whether it's raining or whether it's sunny, it really makes no difference. It's just weather. And we, as awareness, as our deep self, can enjoy the rain. In fact, there's something very beautiful about a rainy day. We've had a lot of it, a lot of practice lately. And so we can start to challenge whenever we have judgments, whenever we have preferences. That can be a signal to say, now hang on, if we're going to assert that at the same time, we're asserting its opposite. And immediately when we have the opposites cancelling each other out, we start to move towards our deeper nature. And our deeper nature is imperturbable. And in fact, it has no coming and no going. It's prior to birth and present after death. sometimes we have in the Zen koan, what was the nature of your face before you were born? And of course, the mind can't go there. And these koans are meant to drive you crazy, so the mind gives up in the end. It can take, some people take 3 years to work with those things. But the aim of it is to get to the place where the mind gives up. And then it falls into something deeper, which is a revelation of our deeper nature, which is prior to and beyond the opposites. So that's a wonderful practice. Whenever you find yourself leaning towards some particular one-sidedness, whether it would be a sense of self, like I am a leader. Well, the best leaders are the best followers. And in fact, if you really concentrate on following and listening deeply to other people, then you'll find yourself propelled automatically into a position of leading people, because that's what makes a good leader. We've all had experiences recently of leaders who haven't been able to do that and seen the disaster that comes about. So one particular person comes to mind who says, we're going to make the world where I live, as they called it out, America, great again. And of course, good luck with that. How does that going to go? We saw the result of that it makes the opposite manifest, which is a complete disintegration. So this is a very simple and profound teaching, to be really on the alert when we start to have the pointing finger. And the pointing finger is judgment, and every time we point that finger, we've got 3 fingers, not one, pointing back here at me. So that's a really good teaching. All right, now so the cultivation of the peace and love that we are is ultimately simple. And it's really coming home to ourselves, coming back to ourselves, because so often we just allow ourselves to be carried away by other people's opinions, by our own moods, or whether they're positive or negative. And so when we have the intention of coming back to ourselves and inviting others to come back to themselves, we're really capable then of sort of walking each other home. And we have this sort of engagement. We really become engaged Buddhists in the sense of we're engaging another at that level of the place that they really live. You see, we have an address, but really we live in this placeless place, which is beyond space and time. Because time is a prison which is constructed by the mind, and in a sense it's like eternity, which is seen through the mind as time. It doesn't have a reality of its own. And space similarly is like infinity seen through the prism of the mind as space. It's something which doesn't have a true existence. And so everything that we experience is here and now. Happiness is here and now. And if you look at the word nowhere, it's sort of like the boundless. It's comprised of 2 words, now and here, put together. That's not a coincidence. That everything that happens, this voice that you're hearing now, is here. It doesn't occur in the brain. It doesn't occur over there at a distance. What's being heard now, the reality that's here in these words, is presence itself. It's intimate. And just as the sound of the bell is in the same way. Now, here. And all we have to do is sound the bell, or the equivalent, listen to a bird deeply singing in the tree, and it's just like that. It brings us now, here, back home. And then ultimately, when we can do that for ourselves, we can begin to walk each other home, which is really what this path is all about. So now I'm going to do a guided meditation, and we're going to, first of all, I don't need you to sort of sit in a particular position, or I don't want you to be uncomfortable. But it is useful to be symmetrical, because there's a certain poise and loveliness about symmetry, and I find it nice to have a relatively straight back. If you slump, it's sort of makes you feel uncomfortable after a little while. So if you can get comfortable, and this goes for the people who are over here. You can find a comfortable place that you can maintain for about 20 minutes to half an hour. And we're going to take the words that I've said and hear them inside, where they really go to. We're going to, in effect, listen to ourselves. And the nature of meditation is really deep listening to ourselves. Meditation isn't so much something that we do, it's who we are when we're quiet. So this lovely solitude that we share is very rich together. So in this lovely stillness, we can begin to contact that little infant that I talked about, who lives in us, experiences all the body sensations as they are without naming them. The baby doesn't say, this is my foot, or this is my arm. It just has a sensation. So I'd like you to begin by being aware of the sensations that are arising, without naming them, without localizing them, except they may be occurring now, here. And the sound of this voice, the sound of the birds when they chirp, is now and here. So the separation between the awareness that is aware of these arisings And whatever it is that arises in our awareness, the bird, the ticking of the clock, the sound of his voice, start to let go of that apparent separation between one who is aware and that which I'm aware of. They begin to collapse into one experience of awareness, aware of itself. And the peace and the joy of our true nature begins to shine. So the beauty of who we are, what we're aware of, is really palpable. The way we see things, the aliveness in the flowers and the trees and the glass, the perfume of silence, so sweet, so lovely. We're experiencing the depth of awareness which is available to us when we just let go effortlessly and discover that we are the flow. We're not separate from it. We are the flow of awareness. And you notice the breath, the apparent effort of breathing in and the effortlessness of breathing out, and the gap between these two that takes us into that quiet place. So breathing in, the effort, and breathing out, the effortlessness. So we can sound that word to ourselves with our breath. Effortless. quietness. In that quiet place at the end of the effortlessness, you can just rest as pure presence. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. Here we're grounded like a tree with roots going deep. But we're not withdrawn, we're engaged. We're reaching out, just like the branches and the leaves reach out at the same time. Grounded, open, engaged. As we listen deeply, we may sense a welling up of gratitude for the opportunity of us being together and sharing this lovely place within and without. We may quite spontaneously feel an outpouring of metta, of compassion, of love, so that we wish others the same blessings that we experience here, that we send it out into the world effortlessly. It's just what happens when we touch deeply our true nature. When we abide and live from this place, then whatever we do will bear fruit. We just have to come from this place. Everything we do will be blessed by this beauty that we are, effortlessly, without naming it. It's just what happens. And the opposite is true. All our conditionings that are difficult and make us suffer, addictions and habits that make us suffer, become very clear to see without judgment. All we have to do is see them as they are. We don't have to make a resolution that I'm going to stop this or that, because then we fall into a pit of repetition. We create its opposite. If we just see it without judgment, allowing ourselves the choice to indulge or not, we may find that at some point it's just easier to make a shift towards what we know is good for us, good for the world, good for people. It's just what happens when we're in touch with who we really are. And we're not only addicted to things like smoking and drinking and gambling and so forth, but we can be addicted to thinking too. Some of us have been conditioned since childhood at school to think and think and think, and that can become a habit. And all we need to do is to see that clearly, and then our thinking can serve a deeper development rather than taking us away from it effortlessly, naturally. deep listening to ourselves, deep welcoming of whatever shows up. It's as though we're sitting by the bank of the river. We're aware of whatever comes along the river, a log here, a leaf there, some bubbles over there. Just being swept along by the river flow. You're just by the riverbank, just aware of the flow, whatever comes up. No comments, no judgments, no trying to get rid of anything, just experiencing whatever shows up. And we sitting on the riverbank are also part of that flow. No separation. Flow has always been this way. It will always be this way. No separation. touching this place, we experience everything more immediately, more deeply. We can listen to music and it's happening here, in me, moving me, opening me. So that the meditation that I am and the meditation that's happening apparently out there is the one experience, no separation. So if we could just stand now and face the Buddha. And we offer a lotus to the Buddha. A lotus to the Dharma. Turn, face each other. The lotus to the Sangha. And please take a seat. So take a moment to notice when we touch that place, the way we see the perceptions are clearer, richer, and we're not in so much of a hurry as we were before. And we're more able to really know what that question might be that we want to ask, whether it be from the Zoom community or from our gathering. And so I'd just like you to reflect for a moment what it is that you may want to ask not feel any pressure to ask a question, but if it occurs naturally, then this would be a good time for you to either share that in person, or if you would prefer to be anonymous, just write it down and pop it in the bowl. And perhaps the same goes kind of for the Zoom community, that they could, in a chat, raise a question that we could look at. And I'm not suggesting that I've got the answers, but I'm surrounded by wonderful people with much experience. I think together we might be able to do a good enough job. The question would be about anything. Not necessarily what I've said, but what's been doing you.
Questions about meditation or about practice or
Anything at all. The best question is the one that arises spontaneously, not premeditated or planned.
so just ask questions for someone that if somebody is like always very stressful, that means their mind is always preoccupied by a lot of things. Do you think they can meditate?
Well, you see, the concept of what meditation is, a lot of people have a misunderstanding. They think it has to be a particular form. We have to sit cross-legged or something like that, and for a certain time, but we don't have to think of it that way. That in fact, the relief of anxiety is to be totally present in whatever we're doing. So, for example, if we're playing, and if we play with total presence, there's no room for anxiety. There's no room for the busy mind. It's the curious, see ball, hit ball. Not that he's the greatest example. I should have said Roger Federer, maybe. But it's really being right where you are, doing what you're doing without anything else. So you can be doing the washing, eating your food, walking along the street. But when you're walking, you're walking. When you're eating, you're eating. When you're playing, you're playing. So the compulsive thinking is an addiction. We think that if we can think our way out of a problem, then it becomes like a habit that we indulge, and it grows 10 heads. That's the origin of the monkey mind. And the more we indulge that, the more it grows. So it's not any attempt at stopping the mind. It's just noticing that it's happening, and then coming back to our true nature, effortlessly.
There's one question on the Zoom. Could you repeat again the words to the first chat? Thanks.
To the
first chat?
First chant.
Oh, the chant, yeah. Okay, the words are, happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries. Nowhere to go. Nothing to do. I'm not in a hurry. It's much better sung.
Yeah.
It's a lovely thing. I remember being at a gathering, a retreat, and everything was going wrong. You know, all the great plans that were made for the outing weren't going well, and it was raining, people getting restless and impatient. And one of the nuns, you know, the lovely sort of happy face, just put her arms out. This is pre-COVID, and just, you know, everyone sort of formed a group, and then she sang that song, and all the impatience just dissolved, and people just smiled, and, you know, we don't have to actually go anywhere. You know, we can be happy right here, and it transformed the whole experience. And as it happened, you know, the resolution of the problem just sort of arose pretty soon after that. So it seems very simple, but it's actually quite profound.
We sing again.
Just to sing that song.
Okay, we sing again.
We sing again. Okay. So you know the words now?
Yeah.
Okay. Happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. I'm not in a hurry. Happiness is here and now. I have dropped my worries. Nowhere to go, nothing to do. And I'm not in a hurry. It's hard to be worried and serious when you sing that.
Some questions.
Yeah, another question on Zoom. Are we part of the same awareness, or does each person inhabit their own awareness?
That's a really good question. You know, philosophers have been arguing the toss about this, and different people have different ideas of what awareness or consciousness is. But my take on it at the moment, remembering that these are just models of reality. No one really knows for sure what it's all about. But the model that works for me at the moment is awareness is undivided, and that we are all an appearance in awareness. We're all like flowers on the camellia bush. And it's not that we're individual separate flowers, but we're part of a whole. And in this metaphor, if we really look at it deeply, as, for example, scientists do, if you explore the nature of matter, you can't actually find it if you go deep enough. It's just activity and rest without actually any boundary. So it's awareness being aware of itself, so it's undivided. So the idea that we have a separate consciousness is the material paradigm. And it's sort of, you know, it's really, as though matter was something solid. In fact, that's an illusion, you know, if we look deeply enough. And we can discover this within ourselves. You know, we can see that the amness that I am and the isness of what that is the same thing. There's no separation. The mind cannot understand that. It's something that you come to realize as you start to hold that question. What is this really? What is this? Who am I? You just sit with that, and the answer reveals itself to you. But it's very liberating, because then we don't have to be too attached to the body or to the forms. We can enjoy them as a passing parade. But there's something unchanging at the core of it, which is universal and impersonal.
I've had a line from Keats going through my head today.
Keats.
Yeah, John Keats, yeah. A thing of beauty is a joy forever.
I'm going to ring the bell for that one.
Just picking up what you're saying about this awareness being in person, that sort of implies that God can't take sides.
Yeah, it's duality.
Pick it up.
Duality is of this world, you know, and at the ultimate level, then it's undivided. Yeah, and whatever God is, I mean, it's burdened with so much, you know, conditioning and story and so on. But no one really knows what that is. We could call that awareness or Buddha nature. I don't mind what you call it, but we all have a deep intuition of what that is. And there's no separation. We're not praying to a God, or we're not bowing to a Buddha. That's just a statue. But the Buddha is who we are, who it is. You know, everything has Buddha nature. And in fact, not just people. That there's a deep understanding that everything is the one thing. It's all the one thing. There's no division. And so there's no sides, there's no separation. It's separation that causes suffering. But we shouldn't get uptight about separation, because that causes suffering, and it's the suffering that makes us turn towards happiness. So it's fine, suffering, there's nothing wrong with suffering. It's often the thing that needs to happen for us to really get that last piece. It's the path.
Just a comment from Dharma Bum. It says that I was struck by your earlier observation that Buddha nature is pure awareness. I never quite thought of it in those terms before. Spot on.
Well, I mean, not everyone shares that point of view, I have to say that. But that's my experience of what I call Buddha nature. It's not the Buddha in some sort of tangible physical form. It's something that we can't actually name, but we know. It's between the lines. You see, all the sutras are pointing to it, but they don't actually touch it. They take us there, but we can't take that last step. We are that last step. Gate gate paragate parasangate bodhi svaha. Going, gone beyond. We all go to the other shore, so be it. Bodhi, enlightenment, so be it. So in other words, we transcend the limitations of duality. And that's what enlightenment is. It's nothing special. It's just resting in our deep nature. We all have access to it. Anybody, the Dharma is open to everyone. Anyone who turns towards it, who's interested in it, it's available. It's nothing. No one person has you know, some particular access to it. We all do, which is amazing when you think of it. So we could look at, you know, taking your lovely Keats quote a little bit further. We could see beauty as the collapse of that separation between self and other. So we lose ourselves in beauty. You know, we look at a beautiful painting, and there's no me looking at a beautiful painting. It's an experience of what we call beauty, which is the collapse of subject and object. We enter into an experience. I was listening to some music, and I love giving talks like this, because when I imagine what I'm going to be talking about, it takes me to a place which is so lovely, and it opens me up. So this is probably better for me than anyone else in this room to have this task, so-called task, which is a privilege really of just immersing myself in the teachings and the beauty. And so what I discover is listening. I listened to some music. It was Beethoven's Third Symphony, played by a wonderful lady called Sotta, an Italian pianist. And she's so just exquisitely beautiful as a being, and so the movements are so touch. I can imagine the piano just being so happy to be played by her. And without thinking, there was no thinking. It was just experiencing. I found the tears just running down my face. So beautiful. I came down and said, "What's going on? You know? What happened?" But such a gift, and to be that experience of the music is not out there. It's here. There's something that was actually happening in me, and that's available to everyone who is open.
I have another Zoom question. Do we try to avoid darkness and seek light, or embrace them both? If so, how do we do that?
Well, the moment we, again, just to remember what I said, the moment we assert one-sidedness, the other side shows up. So we could think of it this way, that darkness isn't just pure darkness. There is hidden light in the darkness. And the moment you remember the light and just switch it on, the darkness appears to disappear. But it's still there. And there's something beyond light and dark, which is unnameable, but it includes both. So that if we start to cling to one or the other, I just want things to be light, then we're one-sided. And if I just want summer, I don't want winter, then nothing's going to really go through its full development. So, yeah, so the answer is we have to transcend. We don't do it with our mind, but we have to understand that transcending the opposites is what happens when we rest deeply in our own nature without any attempt to move towards some sort of grasping or sense of a personal self. It's really at the deepest level, it's impersonal. But that doesn't mean to say it's not intimate. We're all intimate with our deep nature. But the difficult news for people who are all lovey-dovey is it's not personal. In fact, if we start going in that direction, we're going to come up against suffering.
David, because I sing and I have a kind of an intimate connection really with song, it seems to me that when I sing, when I'm really there, you know, I become a song, as it were. But it's also a kind of praise and it's kind of yearning, as I see it. You know, it's kind of like a kind of surrender in a way. I surrender to it. And when you said the statue was just a statue, part of me objected to that. And I thought, if you've got a soft practice, the statue actually becomes real food. It's no longer a statue, it's part of you. Yeah? So it's the same thing of merging with the picture.
Yeah, it's not out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You bring it to life through your own being.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it's not a blasphemy to say that it's not out there. It's actually the most beautiful affirmation of the Buddha.
Yeah. But also what I'm trying to say is that with the song, it's kind of like an offering that you're making. you're kind of calling out with all your heart to, yeah.
Absolutely. And at the same time, you tell me, because you're the one who receives it, you both offer, and in opening yourself up in that way and surrendering that way, then you know, it comes back, something comes back.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how you can name it, but you know it, right? Yeah. But what a gift.
Yeah.
Should have got you to do the singing.
Yeah, Gus can sing very well. And wait, we've got to unmute someone to ask questions. We can't. We can't unmute.
It's technology, it's got its problems. Isn't it?
Ingo, what are you trying to do? I think he think we can unmute him, but we didn't have that set up today.
Select that you've got both.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a bit strange. I'm only just getting used to it, because I'm so used to, you know, giving all my awareness to who's actually here. But at the same time, you know, you've got this amazing, and you know, the more I
It's so accurate, isn't it?
it's a wonderful thing, isn't it? So we've got to get good at it. But it's sort of, you know, it's an adaptation to be able to keep all of this in awareness. But this is a window to everything, isn't it? The computers, it's incredible.
You think they are nowhere, but they are now and here.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
But it's talking about just taking up that point of looking at yourself if an experience comes up. I've been reading about, you know, people feeling down with being at home and not having the same activities and not getting up. I'm doing pretty good. And then come towards the end, everybody else is happy and they're wandering out, and I'm going, got nothing to do, feeling really lost, don't know what's going on, better have a look. And it started easing up and back to friends. Oh, good for us. But then when I talked to said hello to Sue today when we got here, what comes out of my mouth? Oh, it was like being dormant for a year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I thought, the time the answers come, I just, not to be expected, they just pop out. In my experience, I don't know, I think I want an answer in a week. Anyone had it in a week when they demanded it?
But it's interesting you say that. I've heard lots of people say that it's, you know, of course, there's enormous challenges and suffering with our response to the pandemic, but we can also ask the question, what's been good about it? And for a lot of us, it's been a time of, it's like a retreat, and we can deepen our understanding, and we can write those poems, and we can do that artwork, and you know, there's opportunity as well.
And realise you don't have to go as fast. I think a lot of people found out that their neighbourhood was quite nice.
Well, I started baking bread for my neighbours.
A lot of people said they got into the kitchen.
Yeah.
But talking about bread, I finally made something that the family liked. They usually pan that from the kitchen, which is nice usually.
But I love the experience of making bread. You know, it's like a miracle. You know, you have this yeast that just in the air, and you know, you mix it together, and boom, there you go. It's rising, and it's happy days. And you've got this product, and you put it on. I leave it on my neighbour's veranda. You know, so they wake up in the morning and it's warm. and they just
Can
love
I come and live next to you?
it. Yeah. And
But it doesn't last
you
long.
can't make bread and keep it all to yourself. You've got it. You've got to give it out. No, it doesn't last long. No.
No.
There's the best recipe if you're a bread maker. I find that rye and caraway seeds with a little bit of cheese, which my wife says I can't have, but I always think. Oh, it's great. Yeah, that's the cure for any depressions that you have when you're locked up. Tell you.
My memory of homemade bread was my mother-in-law used to make it with the idea that she'd be baking the bread for the week. And of course, it was eaten within the day. She said, what? That was a week's supply of bread. Yeah, but the smell
Yeah, exactly.
and the taste.
The simple
And it
things.
was so fresh. It had this lovely butter on it. And
You're making me hungry now. Well, if there are no more questions, I would like us to just finally come back, and I'll just sound the bell, invite the bell. Say thank you for being here.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
May what we do together here, may the blessings go out where they need to go. Thank you.